Now that it is official that DeMar DeRozan is with the Sacramento Kings, we'll be talking about if this was a good move for the Chicago Bulls and exactly who won in this particular trade. This is your host, Rico Greenhowe, and this is another episode of Bulls Digest. Before we go ahead and jump into it, want to let you know that 78.3% of you guys that watch the videos are not subscribed to the channel. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with the latest news and happenings around your Chicago Bulls. And without further ado, guys, let's go ahead and talk about the Sacramento Kings who moved in to pick up DeMar DeRozan yesterday, guys. And here's the details of that. The Sacramento Kings acquired DeMar DeRozan in a 3-year, $74 million deal. That's a sign and trade. The Kings went ahead and they shipped Harrison Barnes and an unprotected 2031 pick swap to the San Antonio Spurs. And the Bulls get Chris Duarte and 2 second-round draft picks and cash to the Chicago Bulls, guys. And so, look, I mean, to start off here, the Kings definitely went ahead and they got busy this offseason. They went ahead and revamped their lineup. I think that they're paired now with DeMar DeRozan is paired with De'Aaron Fox, who I think won the Clutch Player of the Year award at one point. And so you got two guys that are clutch. I think that DeMar DeRozan and his championship experience is going to help the Kings win some games, and especially in the playoffs as well. And something tells me that the Kings may not be done. All right, there's a chance, and there's rumors out there that they still might be looking for Lauri Markkanen as well. So that is a deal that is possible too. And so I think that Sacramento did a great job in going ahead and getting a guy that can certainly still help them out right now. With the Spurs, I think that San Antonio definitely got a little bit of a win this one as well. I like the fact that they have Harrison Barnes over there. I know he's a bit underrated, but look, Harrison Barnes played for the Golden State Warriors. He's won a championship there. He's played well when he was with the Dallas Mavericks. He's played pretty serviceable when he's with the Kings as well. And I think that that veteran leadership is exactly what Pop is going to want over there, especially as he's trying to shape habits for Wembanyama. And I think that this is going to be terrific for Wembanyama and his evolution and kind of evolving as a player here. I think that this is certainly going to help him, show him how to lead, and these guys are going to help him win some games. I think that, you know, with Harrison Barnes and Chris Paul there, along with the young core that they have there in San Antonio, I can definitely see that they're going to have an improvement. You know, they're going to win some more games than what they did last season. And are they going to be terrible? I don't think they're necessarily going to be terrible, because everywhere that Chris Paul has gone, they've had some success. And so even Chris Paul at 39, and even probably not going to play, a huge significant role like he's done before offensively, he can still pass with the best of them. He still knows how to set players up and things like that. So I think that that certainly is going to be good enough for some wins alone for the San Antonio Spurs. So I'm not saying that they're going to be in a play-in or anything like that, but I think that they're going to be a lot better than they were a season ago. Now, with the Chicago Bulls, all right, guys, and so look, I think that there's a lot of things that come up when I look at this trade for the Chicago Bulls. Number one, they got some draft capital back. All right, so that is a plus in itself. They got some draft capital back. Starting with what we did with Alex Caruso, okay? This is why I think a lot of Chicago Bulls fans are frustrated, because the Chicago Bulls, quite frankly, they hustle backwards, okay? And this was a prime example of hustling backwards, guys. Because look, if Alex Caruso was the most sought-after trade piece for the Chicago Bulls, and we could have got draft capital for Alex Caruso, we did not even get draft capital for Alex Caruso. That's interesting in itself. And Alex Caruso was under contract with the Chicago Bulls. All right. Just to be clear, DeMar DeRozan was a free agent. He could have gone anywhere he wanted to. Okay. The issue with DeMar DeRozan and his free agent situation is that he was probably going to have to play on a minimal contract. All right. It wasn't going to be anywhere near where he should have been valued. And hint, that's why he had to take a 3-year deal. And I think that we were offering him like 2 for 80 or something like that. He got 3 for 74. Okay. And so, you're seeing just how backwards the Chicago Bulls are, because it took for them to go back and grab a guy that they didn't even have under contract, and then they had to negotiate with other teams in order to get draft capital. So in my opinion, the Chicago Bulls, I think, saved a little bit of face this offseason by going out there and getting some draft capital, because they, quite honestly, they should have got some draft capital in the Giddey deal, okay? Because even when you dropped the ball and you didn't trade Caruso for supposedly a top 10 protected pick, and we don't even know if that meant that we would have had to give up the pick that we had in this year's draft, or we could have had 2 draft picks, all right? Because that would have gone a long way for the Chicago Bulls too. So that's what I'm saying with hustling backwards, guys. We had a guy under contract. We had a guy that people wanted and the market valued, and we did not get draft capital, but a guy that he was not under team control and nobody was valuing that high, we had to work with him in order to get draft capital back. So that's the number one thing. The Bulls hustle backwards. Number 2, I am so thankful that DeMar DeRozan played basketball for the Chicago Bulls. I'm so glad that I got a chance to go see him play. And I've always raved about DeMar DeRozan. And for the people out there that didn't necessarily believe in DeMar DeRozan in his time, his tenure, whatever, I don't care. Regardless of what you say, when you look at the numbers, guys, he is going to be a Hall of Famer. That's number 1. This guy did exactly what he was supposed to do and exactly what he said he was going to do when he came here. He said he was going to be available in games, show up, play hard, guys. He's almost 35 years old, and he led the league in minutes played, and he almost won the Clutch Player of the Year award, and he was the king of the fourth, guys. Look, this guy showed Kobe White, DeSumo, and these young guys how to win games down the stretch, and I guarantee you that type of experience is going to rub off on these guys moving forward. They're going to need that experience as they lead us to the next step with our franchise. And so thankful that DeMar DeRozan didn't pout when we were losing, and he took these games serious, and he played with such effort and such heart every single time out there. And look, you'll see him in Kendrick Lamar's video, but as far as I'm concerned, every time you go to the United Center next season, you should be seeing DeMar DeRozan in spirit out there, because he left everything that he had out there on the floor for us. So I definitely want to go ahead and give him his salute, okay? He did not have to come back and work out a deal with us. Yes, it worked out in his favor, and it worked out with the Chicago Bulls' favor. But look, he literally could have said, you know what? You guys decided to stay with, LaVine or whatever you guys were going to do. You guys totally pushed me to the side. And he could have been like, you know what? I'm not working out anything with you guys. But the fact that he did that and he helped our franchise out and we helped him out, which is admirable. I will give that to the Chicago Bulls. Another salute for DeMar DeRozan. So super thankful for that. All right, so those are the 2 things that I would say. All right, the third thing that I would say about the Chicago Bulls is this. You're seeing that they did not get Kevin Huerter over. They didn't get Harrison Barnes over or anything like that. All right, and then this is, this lets you know what the financial situation was for the Chicago Bulls. Okay, so because we had Zach LaVine and we didn't make the decision that we should have made, not just this offseason, but, the year before or trade deadlines before, we saw the writing on the wall. And because we didn't make that decision, we got put in a tough situation right here. Okay. Nobody wanted LaVine at this point in time. He was on the roster. Lonzo Ball did what he was supposed to do by picking up his player option, which ate up a whole bunch of the cap. And then it was like, look, you're going to have to choose between what you're going to do with Patrick Williams and DeRozan. Clearly, they went with Patrick Williams. All right. They went with the youth movement, and understandably so, guys. But the contract that we locked him into was a contract that actually took away from the amount of money that we would have had for a trade to bring people back. That's why the Bulls put out there that they could not take on the contracts coming back. And this is shout out to the Chicago Bulls Central podcast and Hayes who talked about this, guys, because we basically structured Patrick Williams' deal in a way that it was a flat 90 million, right? As it's spaced out versus if it's like a 5% kicker, I guess, every single season or whatever the case may be. It cost us anywhere from like, instead of us having like 14 mil, we had like 10 mil left over. So we just didn't have enough to necessarily go out and bring somebody over. So that's why you did not see a name like Herter or Barnes come back, because the Chicago Bulls simply couldn't afford to do that. All right. Now with Chris Durette, the one thing that I will say about him is that he played particularly well in his rookie season with the Indiana Pacers. I'm throwing his numbers up. 13.1 points per game. You see that he dropped in year 2, and then you see that he had a downfall in Sacramento. Okay, so he did have some shoulder injuries. He is 26 years old, going to be 27. I'm not sure that he necessarily fits with what the Chicago Bulls want to do. I will give him some pub. He did have a heck of a qualifying game with, I think, the Dominican Republic, if I'm not mistaken. He had a 26-5-3 game. So he can absolutely play basketball, no doubt about it. I just think that he got buried in that Kings depth chart. And then also, too, with the Pacers, right? Because I think that once Benedict Mathurin started to play well for the Pacers, that kind of phased Chris Durette out, all right? And so that kind of took away from him and his minutes, guys. And so lastly, I will leave you with this. I think that we are maxed at our roster. We're at 15. We still don't know what we're going to do with Javonte Green. He's still out there, and I think that he's a guy that I'd absolutely like to bring back. So can the Bulls make a couple more changes? I mean, we'll see what happens. I mean, this is where, we're wondering what's going to happen with the LaVine situation. We're curious to know what's going to happen with Vooch. And honestly speaking, out of those two players, I think it makes more sense to continue on with Vooch, like, until we can get to a place where, we can trade Vooch. I mean, I'm not saying that we need to hold on to him, but I think that Vooch, his relationship with the team is probably in a lot different situation than the Zach LaVine situation. Like that, in my opinion, is like a dire situation in the sense that we need to divorce from that situation. Okay. Cause like, even if LaVine comes back and he plays his value up, I mean, he is not going to be a pretty happy player, in my opinion. And I don't know how that's going to rub off on the rest of the locker room, especially young guys that are trying to figure out how to be professionals and trying to figure out how to win. You know what I mean? Like, that's going to be tough when you got a star player, that's going to be pretty mad about the business, right? And so that's going to be a tough situation. So I think that the Chicago Bulls are seriously going to have to hit the pavement, and they have got to figure something out with this Zach LaVine situation before we get into training camp. Vooch is something that I think you can address down the line, guys. And so with that being said, as I've rambled on here, I think that there is a lot of pluses for each team, and I think that each team respectively won in this trade. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. Do you think that the Chicago Bulls finally got something right and they got some draft capital, even though they should have done that with, say, a player like Caruso? Do you believe, just like I'm saying, that the Bulls do hustle backwards? Next up, do you think that this deal makes the Kings a bona fide contender in the West, right? Especially if they were to get a guy like Markkanen. Do you think that the Sacramento Kings are a team that can make a big jump, say like the Timberwolves in the West? And then lastly, with the Spurs, do you think that, with the addition of Chris Paul, with Harrison Barnes, that is going to help that team win a little bit more? And it's also going to help Wembanyama in his development. All right, guys. So even though we are depending on players that had no contract with us in the offseason to get us draft assets, I'm saying, guys, go Bulls. And as usual, peace, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace, peace, peace.